All right, sharing the link. Here we go. There's a link for those of you who can't join Discord. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah, pay no attention to the little thumbnail there. That's a little outdated. But yeah, thank you guys. And we're here to talk about some updates with Rovies. We got a couple of things to discuss. In trying to innovate in the space, we have kind of like a new angle on sort of how we might interact with this game. Pretty much everything we talked about, nothing's changing. We're just going to add like a new element here, and we're going to discuss it here and get your feedback in thinking about how we want to roll this game out. We think about the ownership of the functions most of the time, and then we take a look at what's going on with Decentraland, basically the floor price of land versus like all the assets on top of it, and then kind of like the wider gaming space. Just think about like in the Philippines, so many players are interacting with games to play to earn, and a lot of times it's like propping up an entire country, right? A play to earn experience. And when you have something like that, you consider pricing a big component on rolling these things out. And then on top of that, so in consideration of the pricing is like, what other things can we have like the wider community participate in as far as gaming? Because think about it. You have these Rovies, and these Rovies interact with the future metas that we're going to be rolling out. And just an example, you drop in a Rovi into a PvE arena, and you battle these enemies. And these enemies, the whole point is to upgrade your Rovies. And once you upgrade your Rovies sufficiently, you jump into the PvP arena to earn the Rovi token, right? Whatever it's going to be called. So, and the play to earn experience from that perspective, like there's a cost associated to it, right? And the cost goes all the way to the landowner. The landowner says, I got some land, I paid, minimum three grand, right? And then you're purchasing these metas and you're deploying them, and these metas have a cost associated to them for the purchase, but not only the purchase, but the actual application of them. You have to spend Rovi tokens to use them. So then we're thinking, it's like, okay, so we have a PvE where enemies kind of come in and battle. Well, what if we had the community own also the enemies? And we're like, okay, so if the community owns the enemies, then what's the mechanic here? Like, what would the community need to do in addition to like just jumping in with the Rovies and battling? So these enemies would be a sort of like staked into these metas, right? And they would be essentially dropped in and assigned a location. And anytime that your enemy that you own takes down a Rovi, like actually depletes its energy and takes it down, then you would earn, some asset, right? Either it's going to be the 1155 tokens or potentially the ERC20 token that you would otherwise get in a PvP arena with just your Rovies. And so that's sort of what we're thinking about. And it's a way for more people who don't own land, who don't necessarily own metas, who don't necessarily own Rovies, to participate in the game, right? They become the enemies. So so that's an additional metric. So now think about this. Now we have this player-owned functions in the game. You have player-owned, obviously, your Rovi characters, and now you have player-owned enemies. And so, yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and sort of deliberate on like the implications of that and kind of get your thoughts on all of that. Okay, so let me check the chat here. Of course, we have a Pope to give away. We have a transporter to give away as well. And we'll do that towards the end as far as the transporter goes. But the password for Rovies, and let me look it up. I set this up a little while ago. The password for Rovies, or for the Pope, excuse me. Okay, I got it. So let me first type in the good old POAP bot. Okay, so DM the POAP bot the password. And the password is glitch. All lowercase, just a regular good old glitch. And you should be able to get the Rovi. There's only 200 of them, so those of you listening, you guys got the best shot at collecting them. There's still a cartel out there, kind of mining all these things. So yeah, be quick about it. All right, and let me know if you guys end up receiving it, and that way I know everything looks good. Mr. Daly, thank you for being here. Hey, Ron, thank you, sir. Kim Possible, looks like she's got it. Big Ben, thank you guys. Juxton, of course, as always. Juxton unboxed his Rovis, I think yesterday during the weekend. Congratulations, man. All right, Mr. Daly. All right, everybody's got them. Okay, cool. All right, we had a successful bot operation today. Good job, bot. Yeah, if you notice on this Pope, I decided to change the background a little bit, so it's a little bit different than the other ones. And just to give you an update, just recently the Pope regime has been sending emails to Pope issuers about this impending update that they're changing, and they keep referencing this group, right? I call them a cartel of people who are mining these Popes via the passwords and all that, and they're going to crack down on those guys, and they're going to figure out some way to limit them. And one of the ways that they talked about in the email is limiting them by setting a max count per issuance. So maybe like, I don't know, 500 or 200. I mean, we already started doing that just because it makes sense to have you guys get one and not the cartel. So I figured that if we limit it to 200 and if the password drops during the call, we would optimize you guys getting a Pope versus the cartel. So CAPTCHA, I think these are low cost click centers that are collecting these Popes, just because I get like human responses from these people, and a CAPTCHA is not really going to solve that problem. Cool. All right, so yeah, thank you guys for being here for sure. So like I said, the enemies here are we're thinking about like a new angle, and the enemies being owned by the community and sort of staked into a PvE meta. And the idea here is that there's multiple ways to play to earn. So think about the landowner being a whale, right? In the grand context of things, right? If the landowner's a whale, they're going to be purchasing these metas and deploying the metas on the land. And the only way to play is to interact with these metas. So the landowner being a whale, I mean, that's a huge advantage. But what if you don't own land, right? And that's really the premise for having the Rovi metaverse being deployed. And so one thing that we're going to be testing next week, I believe. I think we can test it right now, but I don't think we're set up to do that yet. But what we're going to be testing next week is we're going to share a link with everybody on the call, and we're going to drop into the Rovi metaverse. So all you need is an internet connection and some device. It could be a cell phone, by the way. And you can drop into this Rovi metaverse and sort of run around with a Rovi. Maybe if we get everything done correctly, maybe it would be your Rovi. So there's a couple of implications to that. If MetaZone works best with a desktop and MetaMask, obviously. So if you're going to drop in with your cell phone, I mean, there's no connection to your desktop and your assets in your MetaMask, right? So we got to figure that out. There's ways to do it. It's not that difficult. It's not going to likely be ready by next week, right? But that'll be like in full production to have that functionality in. But hopefully next week we'll jump into the Rovi metaverse, and for those who are accessing via the desktop, pretty likely you'll be able to see your own Rovi kind of run around. And this will be a representation of a single parcel in the Rovi matrix. And then you should be able to see everybody that jumps in on the call. So there could be, maybe 200 people in the Rovi matrix. So, but having said that, the Rovi matrix is still a ways away before we actually do like a full production of it. But nonetheless, we want to be able to show you guys exactly what that's going to look like, because being able to play to earn on the mobile device is the single most important thing when it comes to play to earn. If you look at what's going on with Axie, they have roughly 1 million daily active users, and most of them on our cell phone. And then when you look at traditional gaming, you look at Roblox, they have 50 million daily active users, and many of them are on the cell phone, right, on a mobile device. So we believe in making sure that our game is accessible to as many people as possible. So we want to be able to deploy our metaverse on the cell phone with just a simple browser. So we've been testing it internally. We've been jumping in and out. So everything works. So next week will be sort of like a stress test. What does it look like when there's 100 people accessing it? So yeah, hopefully you guys will join us next week for that and give us a good test on what we've been building. Yeah, thank you guys for helping out on the Pope distribution there with the password. Okay, so let me leave it up to you guys. You've heard me speak here for a few minutes talking about kind of like the small update in changing the enemies in ownership capabilities. So I want to leave it up to you guys. Like any initial knee-jerk reactions to that, like anything. Could be negative, could be positive. We're here for that feedback. And then pretty soon, if you guys stick around, we'll be giving away the Rovi transporter, and I'll talk about some updates around that too. All right, yeah, and then what was it on Friday? I was hanging out with Big Ben on his Twitch channel. We had a good like a solid podcast conversation about the metaverse and like all the stuff that's been happening. So, I'm not sure. I think on Twitch you can watch like old streams, so definitely go and watch that on Big Ben's Twitch stream. And yeah, it was great. It was felt like a good old podcast, and just hanging out with Big Ben there. So Big Ben, it says, sounds interesting. Would there still be a computer-based enemy? Yeah. So I'm not saying that you'll control these enemies. That's a good question, right? So owning these enemies, that doesn't mean you have to be like active on your computer and like sort of control the enemies to take down any Rovi. It is more like ownership in the sense that you own, let's say, 20 of these things, and then you assign them or stake them into a PvE meta, and then once assigned, if your enemy ends up taking down a Rovi, then you earn either a 1155 token, which could be materials, could be anything, or if we balance this correctly, it would be the ERC20 token, the Rovi token. So you don't actually have to do anything. Now, we need to think through what the regulatory implications of this is, because one thing we can't do, and if you guys don't really know a whole lot about what's going on with regulation and SEC and all that, you can't create an asset where the owner of the asset just accrues money, right? Because then it becomes a security. It becomes like equity in a business, right? When you own equity and the business ends up making money, you don't necessarily get a cut of like the revenues. Depends on like how the business is set up, but you own a piece of the company and you didn't really do anything besides purchase that equity. So that becomes a security and has like these huge legal implications that we don't want to be a part of, right? So instead, if you create an asset where there has to be some work done in order to generate revenue, then it's not a security, right? It's just a good old asset. It's like a business, right? Metas are businesses. They require marketing. They require people. You have to ask people to come to your land. There's like effort into it, right? And that effort, it means that it's not a security. You can't just buy these things and just kind of sit back and do nothing to generate revenue, which, I mean, obviously that would be the ideal situation for everybody, just kind of hang out and just accrue money. You can only do that if you're an accredited investor, at least if you're in the United States. If you're not in the United States, and you don't have to really worry about these like regulatory aspects. So, so now, having said that, when you're talking about owning these enemies and kind of like staking them, you still have to decide who's the best marketer out there. Could it be Big Ben? Could it be Swooty? Could it be another big community member who really does a good job of attracting people to their land? And if you find that person and you decide to stake there, then you've done some work. You've essentially did sort of like a DAO vote. And it's like, I trust this marketer. I trust this whale that owns land and has these metas. I trust that he's going to bring people into the world and have people play on his land. And I'm going to stake my enemies there. And then people with Rovies are going to go where the enemies are, right? And so there's this huge compounding force when it comes to playing this game. All right, let me check some thoughts here. So Trey Waters, don't like starting with owned enemies, feels like competes with PvP. Yeah. So I think this was under the impression that you controlled the enemies and you will not control the enemies. You're more like, let's say, we don't know like how many you'll own like per purchase. It could be 20, it could be 50, but you won't control these enemies. You instead give yourself a higher chance that one of your enemies, one of your owned enemies would take down a Rovi, and if so, then you would be collecting those assets. But other than that, you will not play as an enemy. So Wisty, I like the idea. More options to participate is good. Yeah, that's really the premise of this whole thing, because I think we got to be careful with like the cost of things, and we don't want to get to a point where like it's inaccessible by anybody, right? And so we want to have assets that have like a broad range of prices. So like essentially, I say whale just to give you an idea of like the groups of people involved in the crypto space. But I mean, if you own land, you're not considered a whale. But in the context of a game, you are considered a whale because lands are expensive, right? $3,000 for a piece of land. That's a lot of money. So, but nonetheless, a meta is a revenue generating piece of asset. So they're going to be more expensive, right? A Rovi is going to be more expensive than, a traditional thing that you don't interact with that doesn't generate revenue, right? Like a hollow meta is going to be inexpensive, right? That you deploy that and all of a sudden Rovi show up on your land and that's about it. So those are generally more expensive. So in thinking about the enemies and sort of participation is like, well, what if we had enemies that everybody owned and then there's some ownership or some earning potential in these enemies. So we thought it made sense. It sort of aligned with our thesis of making games in the metaverse, and that's that if you distribute these assets to the community, then well, why not the enemies? Why not the enemies as well, right? So what happens if we kill all the enemies? So another good question. So this kind of reveals like how you guys are understanding. So once you kill the enemies respawn, right? And don't think of the PvE experience as like some zombie horde game where you have like these droves of enemies. Like they're more like they exist in the PvE environment. They're kind of like just idle. And then you jump in and you go and individually attack these enemies. So you control your Rovies, you attack them, and then there's going to be a UI on your screen where you can do power attacks and all that. So you're as a player of upgrading your Rovi, you're going to be active and engaged. As an enemy owner, you're not active. All you're doing is deciding where you're going to stake your enemy, and that's pretty much it. Will enemies be burned if defeated? No, they will not. All right. Sphinxy. If we are holding our Rovies on a hardware wallet, Trezor, would we still be able to access our Rovies account from our mobile device? Any consideration for a mechanism for syncing accounts without entering? Yeah. So let's set this let's set the stage straight here. If anyone from the MetaZone team is asking, like let's say the MetaZone website is asking for seed phrases, do not enter them because that's not the real MetaZone website. So you guys heard it here. If anyone is asking to enter any seed phrases, do not do it. It is the fake Will. It is the fake iMan. It's the fake MetaZone website. So don't do it. But so to answer your question, we can figure out ways to do it because actually it might be kind of tough unless Trezor, which I think Trezor does have an ability to kind of sign a transaction, just a random value. So all I'm saying is if Trezor allows you to confirm that you own the assets, then there's a way to do it. I think there's a way. I'm pretty confident. Like this is pretty standard operating procedure for crypto. So I'm pretty sure there's a way. We just need to implement it. But yeah, supporting hardware wallets is also important. So Corv, we've talked about it before. We need hardware wallet support on MetaZone. Impossible. They will function the same. We would just own them and benefit from them. Yeah, correct. So let's say a good market. Let's say Swooty. He's hosting like this, all these like metas and encouraging people to come in. If he drops off the map and he's no longer marketing, and therefore the amount of people coming in start going down, then you can unstake your enemies and stake them somewhere where there is marketing happening. So all you're trying to do is you're trying to, I don't want to say double dip, but you want to give yourself the best chance in earning assets, right? Because that's going to help you upgrade your Rovies and then give you a better chance at winning in a PvP battle. Okay, so Captain Kush, Pope's giving issues again. Keep trying. If that's not working, just send me a DM and then we'll figure it out. So Bobalorian, so kind of staking to a land parcel. That's correct. Big Ben, will there be enemies that are not owned by players, or will they all be owned? I think starting out, there's going to be enemies that are not owned by players, but once we get a sufficient supply out there and like a good amount of staking is happening, then they will all transition to like only player-owned enemies. Yeah, says Pope stealing bots are BS indeed. Yeah, definitely Pope's. I think you got the email, says, about the Pope update. They're definitely working on it. It's a hard problem to solve for sure. Is Rovi breeding possible? Yes, indeed, Patrick. Rovi breeding is possible. It's called replicating. As a matter of fact, we're looking at the replicator right now. So this is the replicator, and what you're looking at here is you'll take your two Rovies that you want to breed, or in this case replicate. You will interact with this replicator. It'll cost some amount of Rovi tokens in order to replicate. And in addition to being able to replicate, you need to get your Rovies to a certain experience points, right? Certain level in order to replicate. Because we had a community call. As a matter of fact, we're gonna be doing a roundtable pretty soon because the community is asking for it, so we should do it. But anyway, we had a roundtable talking about how in Axie there was like runaway breeding and sort of killed things for some players. And so we, during that call, I think it was Big Ben, during that call we suggested that if the Rovies had to have a minimum level of experience in order to replicate, it could at least throttle it, and it would force the player base to interact with the game. So PvE meta becomes a critical component of the game. Obviously, PvP meta is going to be a critical component. And then obviously the replicator again. And all of these are revenue generating pieces of NFT. So if you guys think of ways where there's more interaction with these different metas, definitely let us know. It's important that we get the wisdom of the collective to design this game properly. And we've seen a bunch of good suggestions. So that was one. Another one was the idea of having the community contribute making wearables, or not wearables, but the accessories. And so all accessories that get submitted, we'll have like an interface for that on MetaZone as well. But anything that gets submitted will have like random RNG stats. Of course, there are going to be 721 assets. And so it's just another way for the community or the creator of that accessory to monetize their experience with the game. So all those are good suggestions, and all of them are being implemented. So Jamie is saying Pope password glitch didn't work. It's worked for some, so it should work. So make sure you DM the right POAP bot. I think there's only one in this Discord. So yeah, good old Patrick with that GIF. 24/7 stream. We don't have a Pope machine on land. So instead, in Discord, you have to DM the POAP bot, and then type in the password is glitch. All right, Big Ben, will there be various enemy levels and strengths? We'll be leveling them up or RNG on drop. That's another good suggestion. So if your enemy, if the enemies that you own end up doing some damage and like actually taking down some Rovies, we could implement some experience points to each of the enemies, and then you have like different experience points per enemy that you battle as a Rovi operator. That's interesting. I'll have to leave that suggestion up to Corv because he would have to be the one implementing it. But it's no different than our current Rovi experience points system. And by the way, all the stuff that we're building for Rovies, they're all functional aspects that any other creator out there can use. So say, for example, you wanted to create your own game. Well, we'll have all the tools available for you to create those games and distribute that game to the community. So that's why we do this. I think it's an important piece to building the metaverse, and not just Decentraland, but any metaverse for that matter that's player owned. And yeah, so we're going to do our best to make it easier for creators out there to take our tools and our technology. Thank you, Justin, for the little jig there, and make sure that the creator community really flourishes, because without creators, I don't think you're going to have a very successful metaverse. Yeah, 24/7, your own game. Yeah. So MetaZone is a platform where we want creators to make stuff, right? And yeah, I mean that's what we're passionate about. That's why we do this, and we also believe in community calls and being transparent with everything, because obviously there's a lot of projects out there that don't do this, and many of them do rug pulls, and yeah, so that's not us. Yeah, you're welcome. Patrick, yeah, you're good, man. All right, let me see. Jamie, looks like Popebot. Okay, glitch. Perhaps the cartel has taken over, Jamie. If they have, I'll verify, and just send me a DM with your ETH address, and we'll get that Pope sent out to you. Yeah. Thank you, Trunks. Appreciate it, man. So yeah. Again, there's quite a few of you here. We're going to be giving away a transporter NFT. So here's the update. I think we have a couple of things to figure out internally in terms of what we're going to do with the transporter cap. We're talking about capping it at around 1,500, and after that 1,500 cap, you will not be able to purchase a transporter any longer, and from there on, you'll only be able to purchase just the actual Rovi itself. So transporters, superchargers will be capped at 1,500. We will make this announcement official as soon as we go over a couple more technical details with the team internally. But yeah, so by the way, I'm already getting hit up by the cartel here. It's unbelievable. Let's see. Okay. When will we be able to deploy the transporters in Decentraland? That's a good question. Um, so the next step is probably the most critical as far as MetaZone goes, and that is getting Meta NFTs deployed. So why is this a big deal? The best way to explain it is when we built MetaZone, we built the MVP version of it, a minimum viable product, and we had this thesis like, what if we made it easier for anyone to make stuff and deploy stuff, right? And there we have MetaZone, and then so the thesis sort of was proven, right? We have evidence to support that all this works, right? Now we just need to solidify this with NFTs and all that stuff. So up until this point, all the metas have been off-chain assets, but they were designed to be on-chain. So a lot of the metadata and everything, they're all there, right? So if you purchased a meta back in 2019 or 2020, there was a mint count that you got. So if you were the first one to purchase the first meta, you would get the first mint. And so all that is in the metadata. So we assumed that everything would be NFTs at some point. So now talking about Rovi's and getting the transporter NFT deployed and then the hologram NFT deployed, all those are metas that are NFTs. So what's the big deal about that? So clearly you guys have Rovi NFTs, transporter NFTs and all that, but the system doesn't recognize them as NFTs. They recognize them as like database entries, right? And if this ETH address has these metas, then you can deploy. So we got to change the system to say if this ETH address signs a transaction confirming that they have these assets, then they can deploy. So that's a new functionality that we need to add to MetaZone. And once that's added, then all metas that have existed and will exist will all be NFTs. And every single creator that comes into MetaZone to make stuff from a building, couch to a game, they'll be submitting digital content and we'll be making them as NFTs. And then the end game for all of this is to have all these metas interoperable with different metaverses. So yeah, that is the end game. So for example, this replicator that you see in Decentraland that you're looking at here, while Juxin is dancing in front of us, this replicator can be deployed not only in Decentraland, but also in the Rovi Matrix. So a good question, kind of like forward thinking for you guys would be, what if, so since we can make these assets interoperable, the question is, if you have a replicator, should you be able to deploy in multiple metaverses at the same time? That's the question. Trey Waters, is it capped at 1,500 each? It isn't official yet. We got a couple more things to kind of outline before we make it official. But for now, soft cap 1,500, yes. Yeah. Yao. So limit has been decided 1,500. For now, it is until the next announcement / call. Oh, Tarika. 1,500 what? So 1,500 transporters and superchargers. So the unboxing experience will end at 1,500, in other words. You will no longer need to unbox. You would just, the next purchase after that cap would be just a Rovi. Okay, so TRMW 1,500 can be extended like the sandbox selling in waves. Can be next Rovi waves. If it's capped at 1,500, we should get a land per Rovi and not per wallet. Well, the land drop has no implications on whether you have transporters or not. So it's all Rovi based. So if you have a Rovi in a transporter and you haven't unboxed, you still get a land. So the land airdrop will still happen regardless of caps or anything like that. And we're talking about just capping the transporter and the supercharger, not the actual Rovi itself. Big Ben, no. One metaverse at a time, in my opinion. That's interesting. Okay, so can possible land still go to the first? Yes, land will still go to anyone holding a Rovi when that trigger happens. Um, yeah, it'll happen as long as you have a Rovi, even if it's in a supercharger or transporter, or it's been unboxed. One Rovi per land per address. And next week you guys will see how big the land is. Let me see if I can zoom out here. Um, I think a Rovi land and the scales are different just because a Rovi's kind of small, but I think a land is as big as a 4 parcel estate in Decentraland. At least it feels that way. So, but you guys, you'll be the judge next week once you jump in there. Okay, I like the idea of allowing the assets to be deployable in multiple metaverses. I like that better than buying a new one for each metaverse. I agree. Oh damn, what the Juxton? What the hell is going on here? Now that is an update. Wow, this is the first time I see these emojis. Like, this is exactly what it should be like. So this is a good example of what you're going to see in the battles. For example, when you have like an axe and you swing that axe at your Rovi opponent, it's not going to be like a little tiny axe, from the little arm. It's going to be a giant axe that like spawns like from the back and like swings down. And so it's going to be like what you would expect the metaverse to have, like embellishment, like some catchiness. That's awesome. That's a very good update by Decentraland. Okay, let me see. Kind of reading through the. Oh, we're running out of time here. Let me before I continue reading here. I stopped at Big Ben. Before I continue reading, let me set up the giveaway bot. You guys can interact with it. Hold on, I got a message. Oh. Hold on. Let me set up this bot and then we can kind of continue chatting here. So, all right. Giving one away. Live chat. Let's do this the next 10 minutes. Okay, one winner. One Rovi transporter NFT. And it's about to pop, and there it is. Okay, so if anyone's listening to this voice on YouTube, Discord, make sure you go to live chat. Find the bot. Damn, I'm missing the chat here. Let me put this into the pinned message. Okay, so yeah, go to the live chat, go to the pinned message, and interact with the giveaway bot, and you'll have a chance to win one Rovi Transporter NFT. All right, let me see if I can go back to the questions here. Let's see. How to get dads? I want in and register on the site as written, and where to look for Pope. How to get dads? I don't know what that is. Okay, Aaron, that's been around for a week or so on my PC. Hearts collapse in dust when you run. Oh, interesting. All right. Let's see. All right. So yeah. Okay. So I guess in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll be giving away that Rovi NFT. I think there was one other thing that we want to talk about. Hold on. I need to check the notes. Um, Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen, just today, Apple just dropped the new MacBook Pros. You should check it out. They look like beasts. And just out of curiosity, are you anyone here Apple fans or PC fans? Or in Jesus, there you go. Says I run both. Nice, both. Look at that. Interesting. I like Apple products, just not Macs. Huh. Sphinxy PC. I only use Macs because of work. Interesting. I love my iPad Pro. Yep. All in Apple. You know, I think ever since I got my first MacBook in 2013, as a matter of fact, I'm still using it, right? 2013 MacBook Pro, 15-inch, 16 gigs of RAM. That thing fires up when I'm in Decentraland like it's a microwave. And I've still been using it, and it's been great. I can't see myself getting a PC. I was 15 years ago, didn't use Apple the last 15 years. Yeah, Mac batteries destroy Microsoft, yeah. And I like PCs because of the gaming capability. I think the new MacBook Pros for gaming, it might change things, but I don't know. I doubt it. I think PC gaming is still going to be number one. So my 2013 Mac has better battery life than my brand new Surface 3 laptop. Wow, that's crazy. So love Mac Pro, but have to update to use Decentraland. Interesting. Crypto Angel, kind of basic, but iPhone for life. That's funny. I'll be building a PC soon. Yeah, man. I think getting a PC. If I get a PC, I'm gonna build it myself. I remember my dad used to work for HP. He would always get these HP laptops. Man, they would just fall apart within a year. They would get all these glitches and everything. It's just terrible, terrible. I currently have an HP Omen gaming laptop that works really well. But HP, yeah, they've been stepping up their game recently on their laptops. All right, so yeah, I mean, a lot of people like Apple. PC is still valuable for gaming. Yeah, man. My biggest fear in switching computers and all that is the digital assets. I'm not gonna expose keys and do uploads and transfers and all that. I'm just gonna send it over, pay the gas fee, not worry about the security too much. And then of course you guys have been keeping up with the Bitcoin prices, Ethereum prices going crazy. We talked about this before. Just putting my I guess expectations of the price out there. I think by the end of December we're going to see 100K Bitcoin, if not the latest. Yeah, my recording studio is pretty bare bones. As you can see, it's just a white background. We've been talking about it for several months now as to exactly how to kind of spruce it up. And I'm not a decorator, so we'll need some input on that. And we have a ton of crypto stuff. We have this magazine, this Bitcoin magazine from 2014 that iMan got. It's like a relic. We want to display that. We have iMan also bought a Beeple, but then he sold it. So we were going to display that, but now it's gone forever, and he missed out on a 100K purchase. Paper hands, man. iMan with paper hands. Oh yeah, dude, you're right, man. Big Ben, bro. Use the overlay like we did on the call. Huh. Well, that's certainly capital efficient, isn't it? Yeah, dude. I need to do that. That's such a good idea. DJC, which is your favorite metaverse, and what do you think of the Facebook about to build their own metaverse? Such a good question. So, Iman and I recently restarted getting back into posting roughly daily on our YouTube channel, and we want to focus on the metaverse. And we talked about Blocktopia. We talked about Roblox. The reason why I know so much about Roblox is because we had to do some research on it. 50 million daily active users, 1 million developers on that platform. Man, that's a goal. Talk about goals. But anyway, so kind of our expectation from like the gamer space is once they learn about digital assets that you can officially own them, and by the way, Roblox is implementing off-chain assets, and they're not calling anything NFTs because they're not going to do that, and it doesn't benefit the business to do NFTs. So once their player base learns about blockchain, I think they're going to be forced to doing NFTs. But anyway, having said that, Roblox obviously a big metaverse. Blocktopia is interesting. It's just a big building, and you can own like sections of the building, and not sure yet what you can deploy there, but I mean, I guess it's interesting. It's attractive looking. It's like high resolution type of gaming experience, so it should be attractive from like the initial sense. But they're still early. They just raised a bunch of money and all that. Now, when talking about Facebook, Facebook is interesting. They got infinite cash, so I think they're going to stick with not doing NFTs, and they are going to focus on their 3D headset, which makes sense. The most important to me when it comes to building the metaverse is an SDK. So Blocktopia has an SDK. We don't know how deep that SDK goes, but that's a good signal. And as long as the community can contribute to the construction of that metaverse, I think there's a chance for that metaverse to continue existing. So my overall opinion about metaverses is this. Ultimately, the metaverse is going to be like a website in the sense that, like there's millions of websites, I think there's going to be thousands of metaverses, maybe millions, maybe not that many, but there's going to be a lot of metaverses, and they're all going to have like their own niche and own focus and things like that. But the player-owned or the community-owned metaverses are the ones that are going to be the most interesting because they're going to have content that you wouldn't expect. And kind of like, people were doing the little clap and like all these like metaverse things, like all these, if they were all user-generated, you would see things that you would never expect. And I think a metaverse that's built by the original, the original creator, like if Rovi's was built, the Rovi metaverse was completely built by us, I don't think it would be as cool as if the Rovi metaverse was built by the community. So I think there has to be blockchain, metaverse, community building, like construction of the metaverse by the community. I think those things are fundamental to having a successful metaverse. And ultimately, that's why we're making a big bet on Decentraland. Decentraland is still going to be huge no matter what. Okay, are we going? Damn, did I miss the... Shit, who won here? Jay Summers, congrats. Look at that. Damn, missed it. All right, Jay Summers. All right, if you can chime in here, that'd be great. But Jay Summers, if you're listening, make sure you DM me your ETH address. All right, let me send that message. Yeah, and as soon as we get more assets out there, let's say like once these meta NFTs are out there and released, we're going to start giving those away as well. And we talked about in the past how the more Rovis you have, the higher chances that you'll have to like actually winning some of these metas. So we'll outline all of this stuff kind of when we get closer to it. All right, 1 second, guys. Okay, DM me your ETH address. All right. Are we going to have Killer Builder to create some sick scenes in our lands? That's such a good question. The builder. We have like a interesting relationship with builders. I think we may have a builder. I would say it's unlikely. And the reason is because I think the unique stuff that creators can do using an SDK is far more interesting and valuable than just having a builder. And if you kind of run around into Decentraland, about 80% of the stuff you see has been built with the builder, and which means 20% of the content here is interesting, right? Builder content is a lot less interesting. Now, if you're building a gallery, that's different. I mean, a gallery is really there to showcase the NFTs, not necessarily what the gallery looks like. So I think the use case for a builder makes sense there. But anything other than that, I think uniqueness is going to trump like kind of like plug and play type of a builder environment. So if you guys disagree, definitely let us know. Then we have to run an SDK Academy. Excellent point. I 100% agree. Yep, and that has implications too. Yep, you're right. That's a good point. Okay, let's see. Yeah, congratulations to Jay Summers. Make sure you DM me your ETH address. And yeah, of course, if you guys have any questions, any thoughts, or anything, please let us know in the chat here. As always, we will be here next week on Monday, 6 p.m. UTC to give away more Rovi NFTs, talk about some updates, and make sure you join us next week as well. We're going to be going into the metaverse, the Rovi metaverse, and then it's just a simple link. You jump in and kind of hang out with us there too. So yes, again, we'll be back next week, and we will catch you in the next live stream. All right, guys. Bye-bye.